Hola, boa noite. I'm not sure if you caught that. I'm just going to do that again. Check this out. There you go, Munson, with the Spiritual Portugal show, a nice leisurely show on a Tuesday. So why don't we just take a moment to whatever methodology you use to calm yourself and to come into the moment. Why not just give that a go right now? hmm. It's a tricky thing. I'm sure these clouds are moving behind me, but they're not actually. It's a tricky thing to do, isn't it? Create dead air on a podcast or radio show, but I'm not afraid of doing that. If your day's been like this, yeah, and some people have had a day like that. Obviously, it happens, doesn't it? You're very welcome to be here and to be here now, and feel yourself in your body. Oh, I say feel yourself. It just sounds so wrong, doesn't it? Be easy in your body. Remember that you've got a body. Sometimes when we're a bit stressed, we don't even remember that we've got a body. We're just that brain on a stick, aren't we? Going about the place, preoccupied with all our thoughts, concerns, and worries. So, one particular conversational theme that we might consider tonight, talking of being preoccupied, is this whole conspiracy theory thing. Now, we've alluded to this before, me and Mrs. M, because I do joust a little bit with her and accuse her of looking at conspiracymums.net a little too often. And of course, really, it's none of my business. It's just a bit of fun between us. She can do what she likes. But I do have my concerns about the amount of exposure we put ourselves through when looking at the news, and particularly at the moment. I think quite a lot of people in what's called the spiritual or new agey movement might be looking at the bigger picture, or the picture behind the picture in the picture, and going to what we could loosely call conspiracy theory community sites, and getting quite caught up in what's going on in said communities. And it can be quite preoccupying, it can be quite upsetting, it can provoke anger and concern and anxiety, even, can't it? And we can find ourselves quite consumed by these things. So let me know what you think about that. I've also today, if I can, I was just downloading the WhatsApp. I'm on Mrs. M's login on the computer, so all my usual software is hard to come by. So I might not be able to put up a picture of Alcabasa Monastery, where I was today. Absolutely beautiful. Talking of spiritual Portugal, a trip to Alcabasa is very well, I would say de rigueur. You should be doing that. I don't like to should on people, but I would say definitely. Whether it be from a spiritual angle or just a touristic angle, go to Alcabasa. And I was remembering a chap I met in my old job, that from where I was made redundant, which made it possible to move to Portugal. A guy called Laurie, and he was he was a miracle because he survived chronic diseases many times over. And he was a really nice bloke, and he was a carer for one of the people I used to work with on the accessible radio station that I used to run, along with a group of other people. And Laurie said to me, "Oh, I hear you're going to Portugal. You've got to go to Alcobaça." I went to Alcobaça, lovely place. Got a monastery there, really nice. And he's absolutely right. First time we went there was 4 years ago, and we loved it. And I went back there today, and I love it even more. Really. And don't worry, no, I'm not thinking of moving there. It's not San Martino de Porto syndrome. That might have been cured on account of moving back to San Martino de Porto. But Alcobaça, the monastery, spiritual Portugal, what relevance? This is another question for you. What relevance do churches, monasteries have within our spiritual realm and the spiritual reality of contemporary life? Is there something useful that churches and monasteries and convents and historical religious buildings, is there a usefulness when it comes to your spirituality, your personal growth, your inner development? And I really have a love-hate relationship with all of these terms and words, but just pointing towards things. Let's not get too hung up on any of the nomenclature. So how much conspiracy theory is useful and helpful? None, or you've got to be informed. Otherwise, you won't know what's going on and they will get you. What's the relevance of old and historic religious paraphernalia within our contemporary spirituality? And arguably, you can only have a contemporary spirit. Well, it can only be now, can't it? I mean, in my view, if you're anything to do with anything that might be called spiritual, it has to be happening now, right? It can't. It's no good having had an enlightenment experience years ago, or having done this, that, and the other, all these sort of spiritual contortions many years ago. If you're going to be spiritually free, the only time to be spiritually free is now, right? Okay, so what are people saying in the comments? You can call in. Why not do that? I mean, I can give you the link, and you can. I've noticed that. Look, it's like that Bernie Clifton, isn't it? Your lips are out of sync. You say the nicest things, Mark Bradbury. Sounds Arabic. Oh, Alcobaça, absolutely right. All of the places in Portugal, Mark, and I will call you Brab from here on in. But as you can see, folks, his name is Mark on the screen there. Yeah, all of Algarve, Aljubarrota, Alcobaça, all of a Moorish origin in Portugal. Really, really important nexus point, or warring point, it has to be said, for the Moors coming up into Europe from the south into the north. From Africa and into the south of Europe. Jousting, yes. A little bit of borderline sort of passive aggression. Bullying, maybe. I don't know. That's for others to decide. Bon dia, Luisa and Kai up, Jim. I do love that profile pic of you on YouTube, Jim. What are you doing there? Are you addressing a conference there? I'm so keen to find out more about you and looking forward to doing some work with you. Breathing in, breathing out. Glad to be here. Yeah, don't forget, folks, if you do breathe out, to breathe back in again. Or even if you breathe in, remember to breathe out again, and vice versa. Nice, says Jim. That might be the little bit of anchoring or coming into the present that we partook of. Is that right? Forgive me and my grammar this time of the evening. But great to have you aboard, Jim, this evening. You or anyone else might want to phone in to talk about loosely spirituality. I don't mean to talk loosely. I mean to talk about spirituality, and I use the phrase spirituality in the loosest sense. Okay, that which is beyond our physical and mental. Let's go with that definition tonight. And what else? What else can we say about spirituality? Not pontification, not religion. Not that there's anything wrong with those things, but when we're talking about spirituality here, as far as I'm concerned, we're talking about ideas, insights, ways of being, behavior that actually sets you free. Okay. That gives you liberation. Otherwise, what is the point? Good evening from Mars Bonfire. Another cracking YouTube image. Love to see you here tonight, Mars. A lot of water's gone under the bridge, isn't it, in our lives and in our collective culture, I think, since we last connected. And there he is, one of his radio stations. Is that a Phonic? That looks a lot like Phonic. But it may well be Bay FM over there in the UK. And a very good evening to you. So where are you broadcasting from weekly at this moment? Coming at you from Marrakesh is Brab tonight. So yes, talking about Alcobaça, he's over there in Marrakesh. So Moorish influences abound tonight on the Spiritual Portugal show. But night from Simon Wright as well. Good evening to you, Simon. How the hell are you? Or should I say on the Spiritual Portugal show, how the heaven are you? You look very regal and suave with a slight greying to your beard. Thank you so much, Mars. Thank you for noticing. Was it a mosque? It's very much a Christian monastery. And I wish I could show you a picture. I wonder how I can do that. I wonder if I can send it a different way. If I post it up onto Facebook now, I wonder if I can then. Yes, I'll do that. I'll post it up onto my own timeline, and I'll show you, because it's worth doing actually, because it is a fabulous building, and it's a beautiful town. So what I'll do is, let me just post that up onto my timeline now. So those of you who do know me will see it, but then I can just share my timeline on the screen now. Actually do a few, couldn't I? Yeah, okay. Let me share that one with you, and I'll do an interior as well, one with the kids. Yeah, I'll do a few shots of the Alcobaça monastery for you, without any description or anything. Just going to stick those up on my timeline so you can see what on earth I'm talking about. So I'll go to Facebook and I'll share those in just a moment. Let's come back to some more of your comments. Oh, I'm in Mrs. M's login, aren't I? Oh, I can still look at myself though, can't I? Or look at my own timeline. That's a bit bizarre and weird, isn't it? Doing that now, and we'll see if those Alcabasa pics have come up there. I'm loving these clouds. It looks like the opening sequence of The Simpsons, doesn't it, really? So let's see. Did that make it to my profile? Did a cracking video of the Atlantic as well today. It's been a lovely day. If you look at the Expats Portugal Facebook page, you will see. Why has that not come up? That's weird. Anyway, I'll come back to that and share those with you a little bit later on. But they are worth sharing. So let's see who else is here. Wolfgang, Wolfgang, and Victoria here. Sorry, I didn't recognize your surname there, Victoria. But Victoria and Wolfgang tuned in. They jumped on recently and we had a fantastic conversation, didn't we, a couple of weeks ago? So if somebody wants to do that again tonight, you're very welcome. Let me put in I'll do the invites on into the comments, and then if you want to come on the screen and have a chat, let's do that. We're very open-hearted, open-minded, and open. Full stop. To if you want to join me, just click on that link that's gone into the comments now. But good evening to you, Wolfgang and Victoria. Conspiracy theories, attachments are hard to resist as they trigger us. We kind of like that, don't we? As well as not liking it. Tie that with many times a fundamental anger and scare, or being scared, and it's hard to take in different views. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so it can also get us quite set in our ways as well, as we listen to the same things and have the same emotions over and over again. That locks us into a bit of a rut, does it, Jim? Is that what you're saying? That's fascinating. I was facilitating a 5-day workshop in Ghana for law enforcement folks. Look at that. That's the lovely picture of Jim White there. As well. And I was just thinking that Mrs. Emma's tuned in, but no, that's me using the Feel Good Conversation and Astrology platform to broadcast this without actually asking her. A picture of Mars bonfire. It was over 10 years ago. Yes, that we were on Phonic. The best radio fun I ever had was with you. Well, that's very kind of you to say so. Well, it was a laugh. Actually, I was listening to one of the shows I did with Monty, and you came up. You were commenting. I think you sent a message in. So thank you very much, Mars, for being here tonight and being there 10 years ago. It was fun, wasn't it? Looks like a fantastic building, very evocative of the past. Okay, so let's see if they've turned up on my time. I don't understand. I'm looking at Mrs. M. Oh, maybe she can't see certain. Mrs. M. I guess this is part of her interest in conspiracy theory. She's going to kill me. There are funny things afoot, aren't there, with Facebook? Is that you can't always see, and other people can't see what you've posted necessarily, unless it fits in with, I guess, two things: the Facebook technology and the what's my password now? I'm not going to say it out loud. Well, that's not right either, is it? I'm struggling. I am really struggling to get Facebook. Oh no, I don't need to do that. Log in. Is that going to work? How boring is watching a radio show with someone logging in live to Facebook? But it seems to be working. Thank God for that. Okay, where was I? I don't. They have. I wonder what, that fragment of a conversation or a comment is there. Next time you log in, click your profile picture instead of using it. Okay. All right. Thank you for that, Facebook. Thank you for it's all well meant, isn't it? All this stuff that delays. Okay, now I can do it. Let me bring these up onto the screen so that you can see what I would call spiritual Alcabasta. Alcabasta to me is like the Bournemouth. Chucking in a bit of Portugal information here as well, but it's like the Bournemouth of the Silver Coast, I would say. And here's a picture of Alcabasta now. The monastery, how about that? And this is a little bit of a squeezed kind of fisheye view of it, but isn't that lovely? Look at that sky as well. And then inside, a sense of scale. I'm not even included the ceiling in there, but you can see the kids just to give you a sense of scale there. It is absolutely beautiful. It really is. And I don't know what the counterpart of phallic is. Is it vulvic? I mean, that internal architecture looks vulvic, if that is the right word, right? Or am I the only person who thinks that? And there's another view outside with that beautiful Portuguese blue sky again. I couldn't help but capture that. and that lovely sunshine, the autumn sun. And there you go, kids going up the step towards the monastery there as well. And that view of the outside again. So Alcobaça, thoroughly recommend it. If you want to come to Portugal, or if you're in Portugal and you haven't been to Alcobaça, it's a must do thing. But what is the relevance? What is the relevance of these spiritual buildings, this old sort of religious architectural paraphernalia? Can it still help us? Is it useful? I mean, personally, I do love to go into a church, and it's a mixed. I mean, the whole thing for me about this is if you start thinking and you're getting, as Jim put it, if you're being triggered or opinionated, you're not really in the now, are you? You're working on old ideas and judgments. And again, there's nothing wrong with that, but we can't claim to be in the here and now if we've gone off on our stuff about religion. So if you go into a cathedral or a monastery like the one I've just shown you, and you're thinking, Christianity, blah, 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 the Crusades and the Vatican. I know I'm mixing up my religions now. They've got all that money. If you're in that, mithering on under your breath or in your mind, you can't be free. You're not in the moment. You're definitely not in the moment if you're full of your judgments. Personally, I mean, I do like the atmosphere. What I think is lovely about churches and cathedrals, and religious spaces, is they've been conditioned often over centuries for peace, and that to me is a good thing. That's a great condition to have created, and then people can walk into it and just, wow, get grounded and get connected and breathe out and get a sense of peace. And that can only be, in my view, it can only be a good thing in the world, that more peace, and less conflict and less judgment and less thinking and anxiety, angst churning over in the mind. But the problem is, of course, the iconography, the history. It is hard not to be triggered, I would say, when you walk into an old religious building. So there's a bit of work to do, isn't there? Sometimes you might be better off walking up to an oak tree and sitting under an oak tree. There are not many ways you can get triggered by going and sitting under an oak tree. Mrs. M is wandering about on the periphery. She fell asleep.
I thought it was the next day, and I thought, oh no, I'm supposed to be doing it.
You thought it was what day is it today? Wednesday already. It's still only Tuesday. Still only Tuesday.
I thought I was late for Rick in Indonesia.
No, you're just late for me.
Sorry.
As it turns out. What are you going to do? You're going to go and sit on a phone or use a laptop and tune in?
I want to go somewhere warm. You know what it's like when you just.
All right. Well, I'll see you in a bit when you found yourself a perch, because we're talking about you, and the predilection for, if that's the right word, for conspiracy theories. How much conspiracy theory is enough?
Never.
It's never enough. Okay. Any is too much for my liking, although I am partial. The buildings are a show of power. God is huge, while us mortals are small. Yes, I get that. That's the message, right, of the big building. But also, I was thinking today, Mars, in a cathedral where the monks were masons as well, weren't they, creating these things? That act of worship, I mean, I get it that it is a show of power. And I was recently at Battaglia, which is a part finished, part destroyed or unfinished monastery. It looked as though Henry VIII had been there, given it a bit of a going over with his gang. But these buildings are a show of power, and they do have a sort of propagandizing effect. I'm sure that's right. But that is our projection now, isn't it? Is that what people thought at the time? I don't know if that's what people thought at the time. But what I was thinking today was, when I was inside the cathedral, was the act of love that's required for people to build a cathedral that may not be finished in their own lifetime. Now, you have to have got over yourself a bit, don't you, to do any project. I mean, it's a bit like people who plant trees that are going to give shade in, 30, 40 years' time, and they might not see it happen. That shows, I think, a level of detachment and unselfishness, and maybe that's what was at work. I mean, we've got such a dim view of religions, haven't we? Often, and many of us, even the spiritual, even there are Christians who look very badly on the church, because they're alive with the Christ message rather than going through all the middlemen and the industrialization, the industrial church. So I understand people's beef about that. And I think also people throw the baby out with the bathwater. So there is much to commend these buildings, in my view, and they are very beautiful and they are arresting in the sense that, you know, your mind is arrested. It's so breathtaking and so awesome that you stop thinking for a moment. And to me, again, that can only be a good thing. So when you say God is huge while us mortals are small, I mean, are you saying that's a good thing and that's a good message? Or are you distancing yourself from religion, putting that all in with religion, and that's the message that's being given by the religions: is God is huge and you're small and insignificant? I wonder. Um, Sorry, what was that? The laptop is in a green bag somewhere out in the hallway. There's a little insight for you into domestic life here. I feel that about the. I feel that about. I feel that the about of devotional worship done in sacred spaces add to the awe and psychic patterns in those buildings. Okay, so Victoria, I'm taking that as an agreement there. Yeah, and anywhere, I think any space that has been peaceful and loved, is that a bit like well-loved people as well? They're quite lovely to be around, I wonder. I don't know. But yes, things happen, don't they? You know, when we condition things, you know, when we sort of stroke them energetically or give them thought waves, you know, stroke them in that way, there's a result, isn't there? You know, things aren't standing still. Things are always in a state of spiral or flux. So these inputs that we give with our prayers, and we all pray, let's face it, or our intentions, or our wishes, or our thoughts and judgments, that's doing something. So, I mean, maybe that's why it's so difficult being, you know, the greatest of celebrities in the world, is because loads of people are thinking about you, and not all of them are thinking good things. But hopefully, and that's why PR is so important, isn't it? Is that more people are thinking good things than bad things, which out. I mean, and if that's the theory you believe in, you know, that we live in some great big energetic soup, and it's a battle. It's an energetic battle. I believe that's the case. Jim White saying churches and monuments are not per se appealing to me until I realize they represent our human search for meaning. And I feel that in how that sentence changes, and our connection and our willingness to expend massive energy for it. So yeah, I get it on a rational level, Jim. Perhaps yeah, you know what churches and monuments are about, and they look like quite dead and static things. But then when you kind of read into it a bit, or you begin to you go into your deeper understanding of it, it is a more positive thing, perhaps. That's certainly the meaning I'm giving to your comment there. Thank you for that. Arundel near Brighton. Yes, I think. Oh, yes, I've been there. There is a huge castle, but also a huge church that is slightly higher than the castle, just to let people know that God is higher than the human being. So again, the religious propaganda, I think, is the point you're making there, Mars. Do you not? Do you not have the odd religious experience yourself, being in a church? And I mean that in a good way. You know, I mean an elevated and open and transcendent sensation or awareness when you're in such a building. We don't have to go with our judgments, do we? And our first thoughts, just as Jim is describing there. You know, as we understand, as we go into our understanding or connect more broadly and openly than our judgmental, rational mind might allow, maybe something beautiful can occur. Maybe that's what's happening for Brab in Marrakesh at the moment. And new cultures can do that, of course, as well. Tell us more about Marrakesh and what that might be like as a spiritual experience, if you will, Brab. So, okay, yeah, Arundel, we've done Arundel. I used to go to with my parents. That's what I'm remembering now. It's Sussex, isn't it? We seem disconnected from the nature and obligated to those systems that sustain us, our loyalty in exchange for our freedoms from tyranny. But this contact covenant is being tested by the top 1%. That's a fascinating so that brings the two themes together tonight. And they needn't be the only themes, folks. If there's something else you want to talk about that's in any way, and even rather tenuously connected to spiritual Portugal, let us know. But conspiracy theories and old religious buildings, Simon seems to have brought the two together here in this comment. So disconnected from nature and obligated to the system. So we gave up our free rangeness, yes, our free ranging, you might say, in exchange for systems that protected us, right? That might have been a king, mightn't it? That might have been a religion. That might be a job these days, mightn't it? I mean, that's the closest thing these days that some people have a sense of belonging and support, but you have to kind of pay a price with your time and effort, don't you? And then you get wages and security, possibly. So yes, our loyalty in exchange for our freedoms. And of course, yes, when you go to work, if we use that analogy of the job as the modern, I mean, tyranny is too strong a word, but yeah, as the modern bondage, the exchange we might have made with a religious organization or a king previously. If we do that with the job, we are giving up our freedom, aren't we? Contracting and going in. And I think that's interesting that you say that last part, that is that contact or contract? It might be the contract covenant, mightn't it? We will do this for you in exchange for this. And it looks like, yes, the top 1%, if we are to believe in that, I'm interested to know what you mean by the 1%. Hold on a minute. She looks like she's sat in a teepee here with a rug on. Let me just a moment, Simon. Where are you? Oh, you're in the kitchen. It does look cold in there, has to be said.
Yeah, it's a bit cold. You know when you've just, hello everybody. When you've been asleep, like snuggled in bed next to some small children, and you've all been cuddled up, and then all of a sudden you wake up. Where did Carl go? Love? Oh, he's been kicked out of his own show.
I still hear you through the kitchen wall. It's fine. I just wanted to get my lip sync right.
But I've woken up and I'm just feeling a little chilly now. So here I am. I look ghastly pale as well under this light. It's not very good. Never mind. I'm here. Hello, everybody.
I think I've got the best of it tonight, haven't I? With my life. I feel like I should swap with you at halftime, maybe. Yeah. So what do you think about it? I was fessing up to saying that I think conspiracymums.net, this little joust and jibe and joke that we have.
Yeah, it's very childish.
What looking at all that stuff, or me making comments about it?
You making comments. I don't make comments. I don't go, oh look, there you are with your sad boys club looking at LBC, listening to LBC radio, or I didn't really take the mickey out of you very much when you did the boys club, or what's it called on Friday night? The man cave, that's right.
But your language is quite dismissive, obviously. I mean, even though you didn't say anything, what you've just said there gives me a pretty good idea of how judgmental you are. It has to be said, right? It doesn't have to be said. I've just said it. And Brab's absolutely right. The lip sync's all over the place tonight, so I'll just carry on as though we're having a conversation without worrying too much about that. But yes, with the this is interesting. I'm sure you'll have a view on this. This is human beings throughout the ages. It would appear, if I understand this right, the contract covenant. We would have given our allegiance to a king years ago. I was talking about Alcobaça earlier on, and that's certainly what would have been going on. People would have worked with the Portuguese kings, I think, to some extent, in exchange for their, a limitation on their freedom, and maybe even their own self-expression. And these are the bargains we make as human beings, right? Some people would have done that and still do that with the church. And some people do that these days. Most people do it with a job now, I think. The modern contract covenant, as we know it, is done with an employer. We sacrifice our time and effort that most people would rather be putting somewhere else in exchange for the security that comes with wages, right? But Simon says the contract covenant is now being tested by the top 1%, who we can assume maybe once looked after us and it was a trade worth making. But it doesn't look like it is anymore. And I'm sure you would agree with that. It doesn't look like a trade worth making anymore.
Yeah. It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because it's not as easy as just like stopping working for companies and stuff like that, because like all of our energy and our water and all our systems are set up in a particular way that it's really difficult to get out of. We had some lovely friends who set up their own very sort of like off-grid house, and they had their own electricity. And at some point, I think they were making more than they were using, and they had the opportunity to give the excess back to the grid. And they said they were happy for it to go back, but they wanted the value of their free energy to be given to somebody who didn't have any energy. Am I Jeff now?
Sorry about that.
And they couldn't give away their free energy via the energy company to a family in need. And yeah, I think that's really sucky, you know. So yeah, I don't know. It's very difficult to opt out. Obviously, I'm more of the opting out type than I am of the, you know, let's stay in, let's be controlled. I don't like the fact that, you know, when you're living in such a way that it looks like you're living at somebody else's expense and they're looking after you. I don't like the fact that you have to, or you're encouraged to adopt their morals and their standards and expected to just agree with those. There's something wrong with that, I think. You know,
Well, this is very central.
like, what is it to be sovereign? What is it to be a human being? Is it to have our own choices about what our beliefs are? You know,
well,
fair enough that I might, you know, want to give my time away or work for somebody else, but you know, my belief systems are my own, and you know, at the moment in society, it looks like you have to subscribe to a particular medical system to be part of everything, and if you don't, then you're somehow unholy or unworthy, or it's okay to be segregated. But you know, very recently, you know, we've been living with somebody who had not that dissimilar a belief system to us, but it was felt by the person we were living with that we weren't expressing faith in the right way, and that created a lot of problems. You know, it was a clear case of, you know, we can see the God in you, but it wasn't truly reciprocated, and that's very difficult. I don't want to have to live my life kowtowing to somebody else's belief system, because that, to me, like, beliefs are the only things we've got, or like that part of us that makes us us. You know, it's what we know to be true, our moral compass. What is it to be human? Is it to be able to make those decisions? Sorry, bit of a rant. It's late.
oh my God.
What are your thoughts? I mean, that's what I'm interested in. You know, what is it that makes you human? What is it that makes you feel free?
I think I'm going to go all Jordan Peterson on your ass now. Is
Feel
my response.
free.
Okay, but
Bring
no, I
it.
mean, before we go there, there are some comments that I want to include so we don't lose them. Victoria
Yeah.
Victoria said, "Look, the buildings are on previous fertility sites where the goddess was worshipped and rituals were practiced in honouring the feminine." And I suppose bring that forward, you know, a few hundred years. And you will see how churches are then deconsecrated and turned into pubs or houses. So this is an ongoing process, isn't it? And you could say a dumbing down over time. And I'm sure that's right, Victoria. People lost their connection with the land and her forces as power was diverted from awareness. Okay, yeah, into cold stone, right? So yeah, I'm thinking maybe you know, more natural spaces for worship would have been would just feel right and truer, don't they, than cold buildings with torn men, you know, with like misery. I mean, that's, although I love the peace of cathedrals, I'm often appalled by the iconography and the suffering that's portrayed as the example. Ree is here, Ree Goff Webb. Hello, Ree. How are you? Howdy, Mr. and Mrs. M. Good evening to you. Going back to LBC, Nick Ferrari, excellent presenter on LBC. Well, I mean, just very quickly, you know, the phrase right winger. There's to me, Bars, he's like one of the right wingers. There are so many right wingers now. Talk radio, LBC, but that's for another time, I guess. I shouldn't be distracted like that. I'm looking forward to being surrounded by the deep religious art, artifacts, and spirituality in Portugal, as I want to learn to appreciate it. Nice one, Jim. We'll go do that together from time to time. Then, a lot of people that have been on furlough for over a year on full pay will find it hard to go back to the office. So that's true. So their contracts covenant will be tested in the next few months. And getting out of the corporate life, etc., is also a profound shift in our identities. It doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes it's part of our midlife journeys. Well said. Oh, hi guys, loving around, Louisa. Okay, Gary, this is what I meant to say. There is no absolute truth because your own truth is the one you follow. Get out of here, Gary, with your blooming relativism, all you lot. I'm gonna come right back on that in just a minute. However, this can change with your life experiences. Thank you for joining us
You know
tonight, Gary.
what? I love having the freedom to be able to change my opinion. Again, I totally agree with that, Gary, because, you know,
You would do.
surely to be human and to be sovereign in yourself gives you the opportunity to change your mind. And of course we change our mind because we're experiencing life all the time. And you can't do that when your ass is like signed up to a bigger thing that forbids it. So I'm all for that, you know, and I have changed my mind and my beliefs based on my experience, and I think that's something that makes us absolutely human, because we can reflect on what's been going on.
Well,
I really
if
love
you
that, and hey, Kimberly, and hey, everyone.
I feel the room is closing in on me now, but I've got to say, if it's changed over time, it can't be the truth, because the truth never changes.
It depends on your definition of the truth, because like, if you're talking about the truth, like, you know, what is at the beginning of everything, or are you talking about our truth in the moment, like situational ethics? I mean, are we talking about, you know, the truth in the moment? I mean, you reserve the right to make up your mind in the moment and to change your mind. I know you do, because you do it all the time. Like we make arrangements to do things, and then you say, that doesn't really feel right for me at the moment. And I'm like, oh yeah, situational ethics, Carl Munson.
God, you make
And
me sound like
of course you can do that.
I do that so rarely, honestly. But anyway, it's not about me. I'll come back to this. Well, I mean, there's a truth. Naked dancing in the woods is always best. Of course, it goes without saying. But thanks for saying it anyway. I agree about and it's funny you should say that just after Gary's, because he's known for that. Naked dancing. And I don't know about the dance.
There is photographic evidence of Carl doing that, actually, which came out on my hen night. I don't know where that photo went, but
No, nor do I. I agree about the kowtowing. How do we recognise our common humanity and let our belief be okay and our own? Lots leave organised religion because of judgments, because of the judgments inherent in some. Yeah, I can totally see that, Jim. Yes,
I think following on from what Jim's saying is my observation. This is just my observation, is that we've been. I was going to say we've been educated out of being able to make up our own mind and realizing that it's okay for us to have our own sort of like morality or our own feelings about things. But actually, I don't think we have been educated out of it. Perhaps we've never had it. Like if society was to collapse tomorrow, are we ready to self-regulate right now? I'm not entirely sure we are. I think there are some who would be ready for it, but I think for most of us, we'll really struggle because we're used to an outside power or an outside authority governing how we behave. But I actually think there's something quite beautiful about knowing how you feel about something and still being able to make it work with neighbours who maybe have slightly different feelings. And I don't think we'll ever prove that to ourselves until we're in the situation where we have to explore that. But we aren't given the chance to do that, really, are we? Because there are these outside authorities all around us all the time. So who knows? I think humanity is like a teenager at the moment. We're finding our way, and we're getting ready to leave home, you know, sort of like on an evolutionary scale. Who knows? I mean, what were you like when you all left home?
yes.
I was a bit of a drifter, had lots of fun. I don't think I deliberately hurt people.
Yeah. Sending pictures of when you left home. So yes, sovereignty is freedom of choice. There's a lot there. I don't know where to begin, quite frankly. Yes, Victoria, that is what is missing. Is that the naked dancing in the woods and a lot of over masculinated and devoid of the Asherah, God's partner. If I've got that right. Truth is subjective, says Victoria. I would say truth is objective, but then I would. And I'm feeling more and more like a fart in a spacesuit every time I speak tonight. Fixed
Hey, isn't there a
versus
ghost story about that?
Kate. What? Kate Baxter, I thought you were talking about that.
Yeah, like
Fixed,
a fart ghost.
right.
We were talking
You
about
might,
ghost farts and her new
you might
story.
you might have to put that in context, or do you just want to leave that hanging there, as it were?
I think you should put it into context because you were the one that read it.
You let it out. Smelt it,
You
dealt it.
smelt it, dealt it.
Fixed versus growth mindset is a fundamental brain-based perspective and reflects on how we show up. Okay, is the glass half empty or half full, says Jim. Gary, loving this. Thanks, everybody, tonight. Life gives us the ability to adapt over time. Absolute truth should, in theory, never change, but things change all the time. Things do, but the truth doesn't. Gary, sorry, that's me interjecting before I've even read to the end of your comment. This is why we find the truth closer to what we feel is right. Oh, man, come on. We can't be basing truth on feelings. Surely not. Kimberly Jones, I don't think there is a gradual process of autonomy and self-sourcing. In my experience, it only happens when we get to fall on our ass with no safety net. Well, that's good enough, isn't it? Well said. I suspect that's aimed at you, Mrs. M, rather than me tonight.
Who knows? Maybe.
Gary Austin, for the record, I've never danced naked in the wood, and that's an absolute truth. But like all truths, it could change, right, Gary? Yes.
Very clever.
However, tomorrow that could change, possibly. Yeah, and also, yes, I am responsible for starting that rumor about Gary in the woods, and I've got mixed feelings about it. You know, if we're talking about feelings here, on the one hand, I feel bad that I started that and made it up, and on the other hand, I still get a lot of fun thinking about it, even like tonight. So I'm sorry, Gary, on the one hand, but sorry, not sorry on the other, because it's been great fun to have that perpetuated over and for it to come up tonight, quite strangely and randomly too. Okay, so where were we? You said if society collapsed. I mean, I think society's already collapsed for one thing. So maybe it will change or increase or something like that in the pattern that you're speaking of. But I think it collapsed a long time ago, or maybe it was never really in full form. For it to collapse from it, it's always been what it was. The rumor never did me any harm. Blue skies, nothing but blue skies. Yes, Victoria. But it also does look like The Simpsons. It does look like the beginning of The Simpsons, doesn't it? And if you want to see a blue sky, if I can just show you one more time the picture of Alcobaça. We're talking about the relevant religious buildings now in our current age, and also how much conspiracy is enough. Just quickly then, blue sky. Look at this, Victoria. This is what you're going to be seeing in a few days' time. Come up as far as from Moorish Algarve to Moorish Alcobaça, and you'll see that blue sky right there. Isn't that fantastic? Yes. How's it going, Victoria? Okay. So, what was I going to do? Why was I going to go all Jordan Peterson on you? Was it because of this sort of subjectivity about the truth? And I know. Yes. What I wanted to say was that. I just think sovereignty is a sort of aspirational thing, and we've always, human beings will always have to kowtow in some way to something, and it's not like we're ever going to be free of that. I don't think people are going to be sovereign and free and roaming about like what are they called? The electrons or valent. In physics, these free electrons that are going all over the place. I just don't think our system is that system. From the very mundane through to the deeply spiritual, there's always a deal to be done, a trade to be done. So even in the scriptural understanding, even in the Eastern mindset, a lot of us Westerners here don't like the Western mindset, do we? And we find that we find the Eastern much more attractive and exotic. And I think it's said, isn't it, that we do a deal with God on our arrival here. So that's not sovereign either, is it? That's the first bargain. So maybe the question is, which deal do you want to do? Do you want to honor the deal you made with God on your arrival in this existence, where you agreed to? I think Wolfgang knows this because I think we talked about it. But the last bit of the deal is that you would forget that you made the deal, which is really clever. And the first bit, what is that you would come to Earth to unfold, maybe. I don't know. Somebody else might be able to answer that. But it's all deals, and it's whether you want to do a deal with a king, an employer, or God. And even the most dysfunctional people I know who are spiritual or religious, I have the most respect for people who give up to God, whatever their version of it is. Even if it's a right old mess, and I don't approve and I judge against it, I still love the idea that they're going to as direct to God as they can, rather than some earthly matter or earthly force. What say you about that, Mrs. M?
I love what you're saying there. I think there's nothing more impressive actually than somebody that really kind of gives it up to God. And to me, like dancing naked in the woods is kind of like a celebration of just being spontaneous and free. I really like what I'm reading some of the comments as they're coming through. And I really like what Kimberly was saying, sovereignty is an inner state. Absolutely. And she's added, in fact, let me just add it in. Nelson Mandela, in all his years in prison, said he was never a prisoner. He was a free man in his mind, heart, and soul. This is true sovereignty, as I use the term. And yeah, I would agree that, you know, we choose to be free or not. And so from that perspective, I'm not a really free person, because I often do feel like I'm a captured person by the state. That's only because I think it'd be different from my perspective if I didn't have children, because I don't know, I'm afraid of making the wrong decision somehow, and I just wish I could make the decisions I want to without the sort of repercussions. So that's sort of pointing at some immaturity on my, you know, on my part, you know, that I've not worked out how to quite make peace with living in this kind of contractual world where I'm not always very much at peace with how things are normally seen. In terms of, yeah, we've come to be contracted and have contracts and this, that, and the other. I don't know if we can really answer that question, you know, like whether we could be sovereign or not, because we've just never had the opportunity to really demonstrate it, you know, and none of us can actually go back in history to a time when there hasn't been anything governing how we live and telling us what's right and wrong. And like right now, you know, our medical model has been told to us and taught to us, and people think you're an idiot if you believe that like, you know, if you just believe everything that you like, if you don't believe what we've been told, people just think you're an idiot. And that's sown, you know, like there's reward systems in place for people that agree, and penalization, you know, people are penalized if they don't agree and don't comply. So our behavior and outcomes are really linked in. I don't think we can go back in history far enough to prove whether we can handle the responsibility of our own lives or not. And because we don't actually know anyone personally that probably has done it, it's really difficult to say how we'll fare. But I'd like to have a go. And yeah, using what Kimberly's saying, the only way I can have a go is to do it in my own mind and
Well,
to
that's right.
really achieve true freedom. And maybe that's the best we can hope for.
Well, does anyone fancy feeling sovereign now?
Or in this moment, I'm sat here, I'm choosing to be here, but I don't feel like my the way I want to live my life is under threat.
You're a lucky woman.
Yeah, I am actually. I
Yeah.
really am, because there are people right now who are in a much worse off state.
True. It also, it would appear, Victoria, self-realization must happen before sovereignty. Otherwise, there is a level of confusion regarding who is. Yes,
It's
that's
a good
brilliant.
point. I love
Look,
that.
if I may, and I'm taking a bit of a
Cool.
risk here, but this is when you were giving birth to our most recent child, or our most recently arrived child. I'll put it that way. You're in great pain, and I think you said something like, "I can't do this," or something along those lines. And the midwife said, "Who says they can't do it?" And it was just such a brilliant. I mean, it's easy for me to say because I was just getting ready to smoke a cigar and making sure the birth pool was topped up and everything in the right temperature, and looking on, anguished, and certainly not in any in the deeply difficult, challenging state you were in. But it struck me, who's talking, and it changed. That is what she said, right? Something along those
Yeah.
lines. Who says they can't go on? And it made what I understood that to mean was, and I thought it was such a good intervention. It causes the person who says that to look at who is saying that. So immediately, that's a good moment of polarity, isn't it? That there is suddenly a divided self, where one part of the self is looking at another part of the self, saying, "Yeah, hold on a minute, who is saying that?" And this is where we can use that. And it don't have to be in childbirth to do that. That could happen at any time. Who is wanting to be sovereign? Who's complaining about not being sovereign? Who's doing that? And is that the person that's going to be free one day, or the one enjoying the sovereignty should it ever happen? So that's a very good, a great sentiment, insight there. That the realization must occur before the sovereignty can occur. Thank you for that, Victoria. Jim White's got a great manifesto. We'll join this political party or spiritual party, or whatever it is, Jim. Dancing naked in the woods around the forest altars while meditating on the latest conspiracy theory. Wow, what a good time. Wash hands, I think, is not a COVID comment. It's an emoji that doesn't show up. Jim's not being a COVID police there. Yeah, and when
That's okay.
you're
You can do that in the privacy of his own home. That's fine anyway.
all of that, or just washing his hands?
Yeah, he can dance naked, wash his hands, enjoy the
I'm doing
latest conspiracy theory. That's fine.
He might be doing that right now as we speak. If we are looking for sovereignty outwardly from the world right now, we won't find it. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's the world at the moment. Well, I say it's not the world, is it? It's just it's how we perceive the world to be, and in this collective of people here, we live in similar circumstances, so we can have a kind of collective agreement almost about that, can't we? But we wouldn't be able to do that with many. We're an echo chamber, aren't we? Effectively, we come together on a similar wavelength from similar backgrounds, so we can have this conversation. But as soon as someone starts talking a different language or comes from a different culture, these ideas that we're talking about don't stand up, do they? Whoever, says Gary, whatever he, she, it, or God is, we have to believe in something. Having faith in something requires faith in your own judgment to do so. Don't you think?
Carl hates that. Whilst there's so much truth in it, I love what you're writing there, Gary. Carl's got this book that is called The Way of No Thinking, and when things get a bit difficult or he gets a bit overstimulated, needs a little bit of a relax. You know how some people have a hot water bottle and a cup of hot cocoa. Carl has his book of no thinking, The Way of No Thinking, and you'll get in a hot bath and read it, won't you? And that soothes you, doesn't it? Like reading so that you can learn not to think.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
but really,
it's true. I mean, some of the premises in it are spot on. Like our sort of habit of wanting to think things through is the thing that causes so much unhappiness.
well, any thinking causes unhappiness ultimately, in my view. But and I don't, it's comical because I'm actually, when I'm reading that book, I'm thinking about not thinking. I'm not actually not thinking. Am I? That's how that works. So that is the definition of sovereignty. It is independent of external circumstances. Thank you, Kimberly, for that. Amen. So Gary, And it is difficult. There are limitations to people sharing comments and then us eating them and coming up with what we think is being said and then responding to what we think is being said rather than what might be being said. So I'm not gonna take that or any of these to task really. I guess we just use them to riff on, don't we, in a way. Some of the medical models are being positively challenged through current brain research integrated with Eastern contemplative practices. Now, this is interesting, Jim, because I'd have thought the other day, which again, of course, is thinking. It occurred to me that we want change to happen far too quickly. We are now in a state of mind where we expect change to certainly occur in our lifetime, and for enlightenment to be happening to me in my lifetime. Whereas if the idea of 7 generations is true, you could put that stuff into 7 generations as well, couldn't you? Because I'm not going to be free of unhappiness in my own time. But maybe if I begin the process and I put the insights into practice and I teach my children how to be free of unhappiness, maybe in 3, 4, 5 generations' time, they'll have embodied that in such a way that will be their natural way. But the problem comes, and the anxiety comes, I think, from wanting to change in our own lifetime. That's the impatience we have, isn't it, as people, as human beings in this time in history, it would seem, to get it done, to use that political phrase. I work with people from many backgrounds, cultures, and faiths, says Kimberly. So is that a reference to the archetypal nature and reference points, possibly there, Kimberly? There are 7 lenses we look from in our mind. We witness the world from, according to Ayurveda. I love that shampoo. Kimberly Jones, what I love about that book, The Way of No Thinking, is it ironically gets me thinking more than any other book. Yes, Kimberly, me too. And the thinking is highly overrated. And I must mention Barry Long and his, what is it, an audio tape, isn't it, which now is available as an MP3, of course. Not that he would know about that, God rest his soul. Is the How to Stop Thinking. That's a fantastic recording by Barry Long. So I hope we haven't caused you to think too much, anything that we've said tonight. That I would hate that to happen. Mrs. M, we've got more work to do this evening, haven't we? So I think we need to finish fairly soon. And
Yeah.
love you all for being here. How do you want to sum up?
I missed the bit at the beginning when you were talking about cathedrals and places of God and all these fantastic buildings. And I think they're like collectors of energy, these buildings. I've always thought that they I don't know, there's something in the design of them. They look like they're nets. They look like they capture energy. And I always as I like, in particular, that one, when I stood outside it, I didn't want to walk into it without saying first, any energy you get from me as I walk in here can only be put to good. Because I think I'm a little bit suspicious of I don't know. There's something really marvelous about people, when they're all like singing and dancing and sharing and celebrating. A lot of really great energy comes off of people in that state. That's why people get very euphoric. But then in some places where religion is expressed in a slightly fearful way or in a sort of penitent way, I think it brings up a feeling of guilt, like a cloud of guilt or this, that, and the other. And so when I go into any of these churches, if it doesn't feel right as I'm entering into it, I kind of say a little prayer that my energy is only put to good use. It's not siphoned off and used for nefarious reasons. But what can I say? I'm just a bit of a contrarian, I think, tonight.
Oh, I didn't tell you. Two things about this. I mean, I was looking for the word that is the female counterpart of phallic, because that to me looks like a great.
That looks like a vagina that our children.
Out of which 3 children.
They're finding their way into a vagina or out of one. I'm not entirely sure which way.
A situation which we've all been in, let's face it, at some time in our life, right? most, unless you're born out of a test tube or something like that. No, even if you began life in a test tube, you'd still probably be born from a vagina or nearby. I'm getting myself in a bit of a pickle with this. But the point is, it's a sign, isn't it, that we live in quite a phallic society when we've got the word phallic, but not its female counterpart, as in labial or vulvic or yoni-esque or something like that. There is a word, I know, but it's just not as well known, is it?
Well, isn't that because like nature is like labial? When you're walking through or yonic even, as Kimberly's just put up. Like,
you never hear that on the radio.
When you walk through the forest, it feels like you're like walking through the moist.
Big hair.
Yeah, like the moist, loving space, and it's holding you. You know, it's like holding you tenderly. And that might be where Gary is like dancing through like the forest vagina.
He never did that.
It's just a rumor. But you know, the buildings that we make tend to be very phallic. But I think nature is like, you know, we came back from town today from like we used the coastal road. But even that is kind of vaginal rather than phallic, you know, like the bits of what was it lining the road, like little pubes like sprouting. What was it?
You're tired, aren't you, love? Let's get you
I'm
to
so
bed.
tired. I really am tired.
Okay.
But like it was beautiful, like driving down that road, you know, like you just had the waters, like coming back tonight, we just had this beautiful dark sky and this like the starlights coming through. We had our favorite music on, and it was really kind of reverent, and there was just something really beautiful and feminine about our drive home.
Yes, dark and inviting. And
yes.
that's a comment Jim made before you started talking about roadside pubic hair. There. Thank you for the nice discussion. But the other thing I wanted to say, and it's you know, so okay. Well, on the one hand, phallic is a well-known word in our culture. Yonic is nothing like a wild bush. Come on.
You know what, Gary? It made our noses drip. You know, because this Silver Coast, like if you drive around like San Martino de Porto or Caldas de Rainha, at night time when the sea mist comes in, it makes everyone feel a bit damp in the throat, and it makes your nose. Yeah, so we're all drippy nosy, but yes, it was slightly moist and fantastic.
This is invisible. Maybe that's why the word phallic and protrusion is obviously, the yang is obviously more obvious to us, isn't it? Especially in Caldas de Rainha, where you can buy a porcelain phallus, but you can't. But interestingly,
yes,
I've never seen a porcelain vagina for sale. Not that I'd want to buy one. I'll have you know, because I would probably get it on Amazon anyway. I wouldn't go in a shop and buy one. And anyway, she, Goddess Invisible, inside in the inner connectivity, just like the Yoni, yet our confused awareness, yet our confused awareness looks out, searching for her with a masculine focus. Okay, this is Jedi stuff, isn't it? You're looking too hard, young Jedi. Search within. Stop going out. Start going in. Absolutely right, Victoria. Well said. Now,
that's a really good point to end the show on. Actually, go on. What?
No, but I can't finish there because there was something I didn't tell you about going to the cathedral today. Because you were, and I can attest to the fact that you do little prayers of your own before going into these industrial religious complexes.
Yeah, but do you know what? Does anyone else here do that? I wonder. Does anyone else feel like they're these places that capture? I would do the same if I went into a stadium. In fact, when you did the comparing for the Olympic Games, like the opening ceremony at Silhane, I went round the grounds and laid a crystal grid out and prayed for the right energy, because I'm not entirely sure that the Olympic, you know, the organisers of the Olympic Games are entirely on the up and up. You know, the idea of the games is a nice idea, you know, like people coming together and stuff, but the organising energy, I didn't want your energy or our family energy brought into something that might compromise I want us to keep our energy as free and as clear as possible.
Two things there. It sounds really good that I emceed at the opening ceremony of the Olympics. It was just a torch reception in a
Yeah, but
provincial
it
town.
was, you were still doing it for the Olympic Games,
Yeah, okay, but
the opening ceremony.
and I think it's fair to say, look at you. You're raising your Prince of Wales insignia in front of the camera. You're a fine one to talk. Look at that. It's
It's
a
not my
sign.
cup, it's yours. It's your family heirloom, not mine.
Be careful with my royal wedding. Look at that. That has got to be worth a lot of money, isn't it? Don't drop it, whatever you do. Prince of Wales won't be happy to see that. Anyway, so I think it was a tiny thing. It was an Olympic torch. One of them came to our little place. And I think with you doing that crystal grid thing, the UK won the fewest amount of medals it had ever won. So these things do work. These things do work. I'll come back to that final comment about Alcobaster in a minute because you're not going to forgive me. Go to Malta, you'll be falling over or falling into possibly ceramic yoga. Let's book a holiday. I thought I was happy here in Portugal, but I feel a sudden urge to go to moist Malta now. If I get a cold, sterile vibe, I will not enter. Yes, that's good dating advice as well, isn't it? I think. I do set my intention when going into any patriarchal institution or building. Well, that's pretty much most buildings, then, Kimberly, in this day and age, I think.
Do you know what? It's really good to know that I'm not on my own, and that the feminine intuitive wisdom vibe is, no one's ever taught me to do that. That's always just what I've done, and we're all doing that in our own way. Interesting.
Yeah. It is great that the women, the sisters are doing that stuff. We each learn from our cultures while building faith through exploration, experience, and diversity to transform our ideals. So true, Simon. You kind of we are products, aren't we, of our environment, and then we riff on the themes, don't we? Improvise on the themes, and some of us go further off the path than others, and at different times, of course, as well. Now, you do a crystal grid, a few Hail Marys or the New Age equivalent, etc., to protect yourself. I'm straight in there, lighting candles, squashing 5 cents pieces, doing every possible thing I can inside the monastery there. And on my way in today, I got pointed at with something, an electronic device. So I went to go in there, and this bloke he kind of gestured to me to hold out my hand. And I don't know what he did, but he pointed this thing at my wrist and then waved me through.
So, is he checking your temperature?
Yeah, I believe so. I didn't ask.
Cheeky man.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I am now on the official satisfactory temperature list of the Alcobaster Monastery statistics of the 29th of September 2021. But what I thought was hilarious about that was I was walking around in there thinking, this is weird. They're checking people to see if they've got COVID, a COVID symptom, not because obviously they couldn't tell if you've got COVID or not. That's even if it exists at all, right? According to some people. But there they are, checking to see if you've got symptoms.
As you enter a place of worship and faith where...
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, what would Jesus do here? Jesus healed the sick. He didn't check and then bar entry. Like, imagine Jesus sort of saying, oh, you're a bit, your forehead's have a hug. Oh, let me touch. Oh, no, I can't be with you today. You've got a bit of a temperature. Come back next week, or you can't come in. There's such a great irony in that, isn't there?
There's a huge irony there.
The temple of healing the sick, and there you go. You can't come in if you're too hot. Forests can seem very cathedral-like. Yes, Gary, especially when there's a lot of the same tree variety, almost slightly overwhelming, even scary to some people. Yes, especially when they're all the same. It's like a Stephen King novel in there, isn't it? That's why pine forests and eucalyptus plantations can seem a bit overpowering. Absolutely right. And not to mention that they can go up like torches in some sort of ceremonial burning as well.
Yeah, like the Notre Dame.
Yes. Do we not go there right now? Let's just say, let's go back to...
Can you? I mean, has it been rebuilt properly?
Okay. All right. Oh, York Minster. So you suspect it's not just old wiring, as they always say in these places? Let's just get finished on Jim's really nice comment that we had a nice discussion tonight. It's disappeared. Maybe it got taken away. No, hold on a minute.
I'm sure I can find it. You're a
Oh,
bit.
this is, Gary, I did get your message earlier on, and actually, I should mention this because we were talking about driving over to Alcobaça and the incredible beaches around here, and it's funny, you do have a story about Salgado Beach, don't you? This is, and you're right, Gary. In all seriousness, we're aware that it's a horrible place, and it's like Disney Tide, isn't it? That grabs you, like a scene from Little Mermaid. It is horrible.
Gary, I went to honour the sea or the ocean at Salgado Beach. It was a time where I just felt like it was the right time to speak to Mother Nature and whatnot. And so I left, like Carl dropped me off and was just waiting with the kids inside the car. And I went and I had offerings in my hand with like stones and shells and something other. And I just wanted to like connect with nature and speak to Mother Nature. And maybe, I don't know, maybe I didn't really get the permission of the ocean, but I was taken down to Chinatown massively. All of a sudden, I was swept off my feet, fully clothed. And I'll never forget the power of nature. As awesome and as in control as we think we are as humans, nature always have the last laugh. It was almost like, it's almost like I was being taught a lesson in humility. So there was me like, feeling in control, wanting to work with the energies of nature. And nature was like, yeah, have a bit of this, knocking me out. And then there was a load of fishermen that had to walk past. They watched the whole thing and they were absolutely wetting themselves. They thought it was hilarious.
Not as wet as you. Though.
Very beautiful, very risky.
Thank you, Gary, for reminding us about that.
We won't be swimming there.
It's as though, I think if it was Britain, it would be shut off, wouldn't it? It is perilous, and people have lost their lives. They've been taken by the sea. So thank you for that reminder. So true. Just highlights how Jesus. This is going back to being tested to see if you're too hot to go into a place of healing. But it's not a place of healing anymore. Let's face it, is it? So true. Just highlights how Jesus has very little to do with organized religion. Runs for cover. No, we're going to keep you here just a little bit longer, because the other thing about Alcobaça Cathedral is Pedro and Inish, I think, are buried there. And Pedro, the man who became king, his beloved Inish was assassinated by his father, for which he never forgave his father. So much so that when his father died, he had the body of his beloved exhumed and dressed and sat her on the throne and made the court all kiss her, what must have been a rather wrinkly hand or gloved hand and jewelry. And he made them all pay the price. He sat her dead body up in the throne and made them all kiss her and treated her as though she was still alive. And it's in the most amazing Portuguese love story. At the top, in the monarchy. So an incredible thing and an incredible reminder. That's probably one of the most beautiful things about Alcobaça Monastery is that love story. I think the lengths he went to prove his love are a little bit excessive in the example I've just given, but certainly it is a great story of the power of love. And I feel a song coming on, but I'm not going to sing that right now. We will be back again, maybe on Saturday, if time and energy allow. But certainly next Tuesday, and we really invite you to join us. Come and join us on the screen. Suggest guests we might speak to. We're always happy to chat like this and have a nice discussion. I have found that comment, and we thank you for that. Thank you, such a nice discussion from Jim. We're always able to have one of these, but it'd be nice to have other people on the screen as well, wouldn't it, Mrs. M?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so we'll say goodnight to you now, and we'll see you real soon. Take care. Oh, which one of these videos can I play as an outro?
Oh, I don't know. Oh yeah, you're in my brand.
What should I do?
Allow me. I won't do
the health and safety executive intro.
No, that's the High Self Expo intro and outro. How about like lighting the path? This is an advert for my business mind, so forgive that. But let's do
a nice way to finish, isn't it?
Oh, hang on, let's do this one first, because this has been a bit of a feel-good conversation, isn't it? So
okay.
Anyway, lots of love to you all. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah. Ciao, ciao. Bye for now.
Ciao, ciao.